In this video, I'm gonna show you how to use the advanced profile. So it's quite complicated. I should tell it's quite complicated for the newbies. So please, you need to understand the concept of the profiling from the pressure and the flow rate profile. And then if you understand enough, then you can come to the advanced profile editor. That doesn't mean you cannot use the advanced default profiles. You can use any like advanced profiles in the preset profile, such as this blooming espresso, or like Ford flush cleaning, or like Damien's LRV3, or any profiles that like based on the advanced profile. But I recommend you to like understand the concept of the profiling on the decent espresso machine before you are digging into this one. So it's already looking complicated, and there are like a lot of steps right here, right? And there are like a lot of things that you can edit. So I will explain one by one with examples. So this is cleaning, but this is not really good example for the advanced profiling. So this is blooming espresso, like created by Scott Rail. This is quite simple example. So firstly, there are 5 steps, and there is the graph that shows how the shot will go if you like make a shot with this profile. And this yellow line is the step that you chose on here. So if I choose pose, then it'll show like this, and ramp and flat flow and reset temperature. You can make like maximum 20 steps. For like adding this step, you just need to tap plus right here. Okay, and if you want to delete that step, then you can just tap the trash can icon right here, like this. And then I'm just gonna start with the temperature right here. So you can see 2 things that you can control for the temperature. So this is a simple. You can just set the temperature for the step. You can set the different temperatures for each step. So for example, this is 97.5 and this is 90, 92, something like this. But you can just like set the same temperature for each step. It takes quite a time if you go to the each step and then set the temperature. So John made a feature that you can control the temperature, overall temperature on here. So if you set the temperature on here, then it'll change the temperature on the every step. But I don't want to like edit temperatures on for the blooming espresso, so I'll just keep it as it is. So you can set the temperature on here, and then here is the sensor. So this is where you want to sense the temperature for the goal temperature. So coffee means coffee puck. So it'll use the temperature of the coffee puck for the goal temperature. But if you tap on here, it'll change to the water. Water temperature means this is boiler. So water temperature means it'll use the heater temperature for the goal temperature. So if I set something like this, then the boiler will try to keep the 97.5 degrees Celsius. So the temperature on the puck will be kind of like various. But if you set like this, the machine will change the temperature to keep the goal temperature on the coffee puck. And this is the goal. So there is flow and pressure and transition. That means you can set flow profile or the pressure profile for each step. So you can go flow to pressure to flow to pressure. You can go flow, flow, pressure, pressure. In the advanced profile, you can set both like variable. But for each step, you can only set one variable. If the step is set like flow rate goal, then that's just flow rate step. And if the step is set like pressure goal, then it's just pressure step. How to move the flow goal to pressure goal? You just need to tap in the middle of the icon. Then it changes to the pressure goal. If you tap here, then it'll change to the flow rate goal. The blooming espresso profile, it has got the flow rate goal at 4 milliliter per second for the pre-infusion step. And the limit feature. If you are watching this video, I'm assuming that you've already watched the other video about the like flow rate and the pressure profiling. If you like review the video, there was the limit feature, right? flow rate like profiling page, there is the pressure limit, and the pressure profiling page, there was the flow rate limit. It works like the same, so you can just set the limit on here. If you set the pressure goal, then you've got the flow limit, so you can set the flow limit on here as well. Yeah. And transition. Transition's got like two things. So fast or smooth. So fast works like when we are like moving from the pre-infusion to the rise and hold step in like flow rate or like pressure profiling pages. And smooth is working like the decline in the flow rate or like pressure profiling page. So there is an example actually. There is ramp and it says smooth. So we need to see the previous goal, right? So the previous goal is flow rate goal, and it was like 0.0 milliliter per second, and the ramp stage is got like 2.2 milliliter per second and smooth. Then it will smoothly rise the flow rate from 0.0 to 2.2 milliliter per second for 5 seconds. So it'll reach 2.2 milliliter per second after 5 seconds of this stage. So that's the transition. And there is maximum. It's another limit actually. So we've got time limit, volume limit, weight limit. And that means which one reaches first will be the trigger to move to the next stage. So you can change the time on here like this. But if you double tap, it'll change 10 seconds unit at once. But if you just do single tap, it'll change just 1 second value. And volume as well. If you double tap, it'll change 10 milliliter value. If you just single tap, it'll change 1 value. Weight as well. Double tap 10 grams, one tap 1 grams, something like this. And move on if. Move on if can be tricky actually. Move on if works just the same like the pre-infusion stages pressure goal in the like flow rate profiling and the pressure profiling. It's set like pressure is over 4.0 bar, right? So it'll start with like 0 bar, and then as the time goes, it'll build up the pressure, and then when it hits 4 bar, it'll move to the next stage, even though it won't reach this limit. And pressure is under, is a bit different. If you want to set this one, you have to have the higher pressure than this value. So it's not for like pre-infusion, right? There is not gonna be pressure during the pre-infusion stage. You can see in the like flow rate profiling shot, as the time goes, the pressure is declining, right? If you set like this, when the pressure decline and reach 2 bar, it'll move to the next stage. And to trigger the pressure is over or under, it should be the flow rate goal, right? If you set the pressure already, then it won't reach those two conditions, right? And flow is over and flow is under, it should have the pressure goal so that you can use the flow triggers on here. So for example, if you do the like pressure shot, the flow rate is getting faster as the time goes. So if you set the flow is over like this, then if the flow rate reaches the 2.3 milliliter per second, then it will move to the next stage. Flow is under is the same. When you can see the flow rate is under, is like the shot is moving the pre-infusion step to the rise and hold stage. As the pressure rises, the flow rate will be slower. In that condition, you can use this flow is under as the trigger to move to the next stage. So that's the move on if. And there is limits. Unlikely the pressure or like flow rate profiling, you can set stop at water volume and stop at weight together. That's actually really confusing for like newbies. A lot of users ask like the shot finish. Earlier, I set the stop at weight at like, for example, 40 grams, but it just stopped earlier. Then I usually say, please check stop at water volume, because advanced profile can set those two to stop the shot automatically together. So the stop at water volume might trigger the stop. So if you don't want to use the stop at water volume, I recommend you to just turn it off and only turn the stop at weight on. That's the most important thing, so that I just jumped into those two first. And this is preheating water tank. So you can preheat the water tank if the shot requires like high temperature with fast flow rate. For example, if you want to do like pullover, it has got like 6 milliliter per second flow rate with like 90 degrees Celsius, and it goes for like 20 or 30 seconds. Then if you don't preheat the water in the water tank, then the temperature can be dropped. For avoiding that, we recommend you to preheat the water tank, but it's not really used because if you set like this, you need to physically preheat the water tank, and you need to wait till the temperature of the water in the tank hits 45 degrees Celsius if it's at the maximum. Usually we don't really use it. And this track water volume is kind of important as well. If you don't set track water volume, it's immediately as the default. That means it'll count the water volume that used for the pre-infusion stage as well. In the pressure and the flow rate profiling page, it doesn't count the water volume that used for the pre-infusion stage, but you can set if you want to count the water volume for the first stage. Yeah, it's usually pre-infusion though. Yeah, first stage. So if you set immediately on here like this and set 60 milliliter per second, the pre-infusion stage usually use a lot of water, so it'll just stop the shot really fast. So you can set like this, not to count the water volume they used for the pre-infusion stage, or even you can just skip counting the water volume for 2 stages. It's up to you. If you use the Bluetooth scale, you don't really need to use this. So limiter range of action. So this is related to this flow limit or pressure limit. So this one works for the flow limit, and this one works for the pressure limit. So if you set like this, then it'll give you this much of room. So for example, if you set the flow rate limit at 2 milliliter per second, if you set 4 milliliter per second on the limiter range of action, then it'll not like limit the flow rate up to 6 milliliter per second. There you go. So that was the explanation of the advanced profile, and I'll show you some example of it. So this is the blooming espresso, which is really widely used profile created by Scott Rayo. The first stage pre-infusion step has got like really high temperature goal, and this temperature goal is on the coffee pot. The flow rate is 4 milliliter per second for this step, and transition is fast. It goes like 23 seconds, but there is move on if. So if the grinding point is good enough, then it'll hit 4 bar within 23 seconds. So it'll be the trigger to move to the next stage. And water volume 500 milliliters, but it's really meaningless because it won't use that much of water for the pre-infusion, especially to reach 4 bar and 23 seconds, because the flow rate is 4 milliliter per second. So if we multiply those two, then it'll be 92. Yeah, 92. So it's not even close to the 500. And the next stage is post. So it'll really post the shot. So the flow rate is at 0.0 milliliter per second. Transition is fast. It hits 4 bar. It will like immediately post the water flow from the machine. So it'll pause for 30 seconds and then kind of like bloom the coffee. And the goal temperature is 90 degrees Celsius, but it's really hard to reach 90 degrees Celsius because the machine can change the temperature fast with water. So if the flow rate is fast, it can change the temperature, especially drop the temperature really fast. But it's post stage, so that means there is no water going on. So it'll hardly reach 90 degrees Celsius. This is the ramp stage. It's got smooth for the transition. So it'll smoothly rise the flow rate from 0.0 milliliter per second to 2.2 milliliter per second for 5 seconds. The end of the ramp stage, the flow rate is 2.2 milliliter per second. So on the full flow stage, it'll just keep the flow rate. And the pressure limit is 8.6 bar. So the pressure doesn't go above this, even though the flow rate cannot reach 2.2 milliliter per second. If the grinding point is really fine, or you put like too much coffee, then that can happen. And transition is fast as well, and the shot time is 20 seconds. It can be short if the grinding point is really fine, then it won't reach 2.2 milliliter per second, so that you may not get the enough coffee, enough espresso in your cup. So if you want to keep the grinding point and work with the pressure limit, then you may want to just longer the time on here. And reset temperature doesn't really do anything, but it's set at like 98 degrees Celsius, so that it's just for the next shot. So machine will preheat the temperature at 98 Celsius after the shot. And the other example is this cleaning profile. So the cleaning profile has got 9 stages. That looks a lot, but it's just repeating the same thing. This profile only uses the pressure goal. The temperature is 89 degrees Celsius and there is no flow limit, and the pressure is 10 bar. So it'll give really fast water to reach 10 bar for 20 seconds. And there is pause. So after the first stage, it'll pause, but not likely the blooming espresso. It'll open the valve. There is gonna be no pressure, so it'll release the water in the like blind basket so that it can reach the goal pressure, which is 0 bar. It'll open the drain valve for 15 seconds, and then it'll give water at 10 bar, same like the first stage, and then it'll open the valve, close the valve and give water, open the valve, close the valve and give water, open the valve, close the valve and give water, and then it'll stop the shot. So it gives water for 5 times so that it can clean the group parts with the detergent or without the detergent. And there is no like stop at water volume or like stop at weight setting for the cleaning profile. So with advanced profile, you can actually set anything that you want, basically anything that you want. You just need like some ideas to make your own shot. This is kind of like the gold feature of the Descent Espresso. As long as you understand how those features work, then you get the gold from the Descent Espresso machine. Thank you.